sorry about the puppy interruptions. Clearly, an 11-year-old and 9-year-old can't look after puppies. Anyway, hi. My name is Anna Atkinson, and I'm standing for re-election for the Upper Harbour Local Board for the second term. So we kind of discussed I would talk about what have I learned, and it's certainly not enough about making speeches. But in all seriousness, it's been a completely amazing ride. It's the most frustrating and satisfying job I've had in equal parts ever. So a few words about me, just for those who don't know me, before I get into any board issues. I live in Palermo with my husband, 2 kids, that dog, some cattle, pet goats and a pig. The menagerie keeps growing, but I'm trying to put a stop to it, no more. On our property, I trap pests, I plant native trees, and I try to improve the natural environment for things like fencing off the wetlands so that the cattle don't graze in the wetlands like they used to before we got there. I'm involved in many community groups, ranging from Bike Auckland to coaching a hockey team, managing a netball team, past treasurer of the Friends of the School, the PTA at school. I'm a chartered accountant, and I had 20 years in business before coming to the board. But it's the best job I've ever had. Now, I love this area we live in, and by that I mean all about the harbour, not just Palermo. I grew up in Glenfield and then the Bays, and I've pretty much spent most of my adult life on the North Shore. We've got a fantastic place here, but there are some really significant challenges, mainly related to the high rate of growth and obviously the lack of infrastructure and investment. Nicholas has already discussed the financial implications that we will have going forward. Auckland Council is in trouble. There's been financial issues due to COVID. Everyone knows about inflation. That affects us because of the steel projects and all the projects we do. But also we need to adapt to climate change and also make cutting emissions a priority. Basically, we've got a lot to do and not enough money to do it. So while a lot of the decisions are made by the governing body, your local boards actually have a really significant influence in what we do locally. So you need to elect people who will be proactive, enthusiastic, with great values, who will be tireless in achieving the goals of the community. People like our team, people like living at the harbour. So what actually have I learned and achieved in the last 3 years? Firstly, it's actually quite slow progress to get things done, but it's actually slow for a reason. It's public money we're spending, and we need to make sure that we're spending it correctly. So there are checks and balances, consultations, and endless consultations to make sure it's what the community wants. This has got upsides and downsides. Me and the community actually get consultation fatigue. So I, for one, have been setting up for about the last year. Every 6 weeks I'll have an event in a park or reserve. They'll advertise on Facebook where people can come and talk to me in an informal, non-consultation way. Nicholas and I also made a commitment that our monthly community forums, which is a monthly evening meeting where members of the community can come and talk to us, would happen just outside of Albany, because our communities range right the way from North Cross to West Harbour, taking in Greenhithe, Whenuapai, Palermo, lots of communities that the board never gets to. We managed to have one in Whenuapai. We had a couple in Hobsonville that were cancelled due to COVID, and everything else we tried got cancelled due to COVID. But we will try again, because we think it's really important that we have meetings where we can meet people where they live. So we feel that Nicholas and I and the board have actually achieved a lot given the constraints we've got. For example, there's a new playground being built in Scott Point, which is a high-growth, high-intense development near Hobsonville. You might think that's normal and natural and it should happen whenever there's new intense development. It's not. It took a lot of work and advocacy and fighting to actually get that done. We're also renewing playgrounds and community houses in areas where they get to the end of their useful lives. That includes the playground just over in the War Memorial, just over in Greenhithe, plus community centres in Unsworth, and Albany Pool's finally getting some proper disability facilities, because unfortunately when it was built, it wasn't actually catering for everyone who needed to use it. Now our open green spaces are being cared for by more volunteer groups than they were 3 years ago. There's more people involved in making our environment more resilient. And more children can walk to school, because we've put in more shed paths and more footpaths than when we started. And that's really important, because 40% of our CO2 emissions in Auckland come from transport. But longer term projects are also being completed, such as a new sustainable sports park, sustainable because it uses less water and requires less effort when it's finally completed in Hobsonville Scott Point. We're renewing some other sports fields near Caribbean Drive and Unsworth Heights. We're putting in a new shed path to connect existing shed paths in Rosedale. So there's some big plans and some small plans that are happening. Many things actually take longer than just a 3-year election cycle to implement. But due to the planning that we've had in place, we've got plans that are going to enhance the environment even further and provide access to our open green spaces for all our residents and provide facilities and activities that our community can enjoy. I could go on, but it's really been a team effort. Some of the things I've mentioned have been spearheaded by Nicholas and myself, and some by the whole board. I'm really actually proud of what we've achieved, but we really need to work together to make sure we keep on achieving healthy, active communities, greater transport choices, growing green spaces, and resilient economy. So I'm really hoping you'll vote for me and my team in the upcoming local body elections. Thank you.